Let's get started. We'd like to acknowledge the current weather forecast, which is calling for thunderstorms across the state, as this may affect the timing and quality of our meeting. We will continue with every effort to keep this meeting on track. If you lose connection, please try to re-enter the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. Hello and welcome, everyone. This meeting is virtual and presented by IFSP Regional Councils. On behalf of the IFSP Council members and the staff of IFSP, we appreciate your attendance and time. Post-meeting content regarding this meeting will be available on YouTube. This is a public meeting. While sharing communications, please do not share personal, private, or protected information. Hello, my name is Monica Mann. I am a member of the IFSP State Council. I have two amazing brothers with Down syndrome, and you could say I was inspired early on to advocate for and support individuals with various disabilities. My role as an advocate and volunteer started at the age of 3 when I attended kindergarten with my older brother. Throughout my life, I've developed many connections through various volunteer groups and organizations, and I've spent my career working in waiver services and case management. I believe it's important to take what I've learned from both my personal experiences and professional exposures to help others, making their journey a bit easier. This passion led me to join the IFSP Council, with the goal of sharing resources and information, as well as continuing to learn from all of you and the speakers who contribute to these meetings. This meeting will now begin. If you have any questions specifically about IFSP funding, please visit the My Life, My Community website. Rachel, please provide the link for the funding page. Tonight's educational topic, Understanding and Preparing for Independent Living. The main presenter is Marie Fraticelli, DBHDS's Western Region Housing Coordinator. Typically, we have regional breakout sessions during the Coordinated Council meetings. However, that will not be the case this evening. Instead, we have a panel of council members with lived experience to share their journey to answer your questions. Thea Blech-Caulder, William O'Connell, and Shawn Kirk. We also are joined tonight by Leora Grassal, our captioner from Virginia Hamilton Relay. Rachel, please provide the link in the chat for those who may need this resource during this meeting. If you need technical assistance or have questions related to this meeting agenda, please email ifspcommunity@dbhds.virginia.gov. Rachel, please share that contact information as well. Some ground rules for tonight's meeting. This meeting is intended to provide important information on independent living options. The focus for tonight is getting the right information from the right resources to help prepare for this type of transition. Attendees are encouraged to focus on the main presenter and ask questions within the context of the meeting. The goal is to obtain details from the expert to know where to start the process and what to consider if deciding to live on your own. Some ground rules. Please be respectful of our main presenter, panelists, and all attendees. Your microphone will be muted. Cameras are optional during the meeting. Please use chat for all communications and questions. IFSP staff will collect your questions and prioritize them for the Q&A session later on in the agenda. If you are unable to type your questions in chat, please use the raised hand feature at the top of the screen, and we will circle back to answer those questions. Please be advised there is no option for private chat messages during this meeting. All comments entered into the chat can be seen by all attendees. If you cannot use the communication function in Teams, please raise your hand for assistance, and someone from IFSP will assist. Questions unrelated to this meeting should be emailed to ifspcommunity@dbhds.virginia.gov. Rachel, can you please provide the email as well? Last, please be advised that IFSP can remove anyone from this meeting deemed disruptive to other attendees. Tonight, we also have Deanna Parker, the DBHDS Director of Community Networks and Supports with us. Deanna, if you want to say anything before we get started.
Yes, so good evening to everyone. I really am so pleased to be able to welcome all of you to today's session. I just wanted to say that in addition to my professional role, like many of you, I'm also a parent. And so this topic is one that is especially important to me as well. So we hope that it's one that will be helpful and informative to you all as well.
Sorry, we will now turn the meeting over to Heather Hines, who will give us an overview of IFSP program services.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Hines. I'm the program manager for the Individual and Family Support Program. IFSP, the Individual and Family Support Program, helps people with developmental disabilities and their families. We are part of the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. Our main purpose is to help people who are on the DD waiver waiting list. Some of our programs and resources are also available to people who need help but aren't on the waiting list yet. And also, we have programs that will help people, even people who have a DD waiver. Before we get into our main presentation, I'll just share a little bit about what we do and encourage you to share this information with others in your community. As you can see on the slide, we have several components to our program. The IFSP Community Coordination Program involves regional and state councils made up of people with developmental disabilities, family members, caregivers, and professionals. Council members help to organize coordinated council events like the one you're attending tonight to provide information to people on different topics throughout the year. They also build local support networks, act as liaisons with IFSP, and share helpful information in their communities. We are grateful for what they do to help others across Virginia. The IFSP funding program happens once a year when people on the DD waiver waiting list can apply for financial assistance for items and services so that they can continue to live in their homes in the community. Additionally, we offer direct support through partnerships with organizations like Virginia Commonwealth University and the Arc of Virginia. These collaborations provide family and peer mentoring opportunities, as well as leadership for empowerment and abuse prevention training. Our My Life, My Community website, developed with Virginia Navigator, serves as a resource hub, accessible to all, offering information on services and supports. You can also call their toll-free number for help with navigating the website or if you have other questions. Our marketing and messaging efforts ensure vital information reaches individuals, families, and the wider community. Our IFSP First Steps document is available on the My Life, My Community website and in our annual mailer that goes out to everyone on the DD waiver waitlist. And it offers an overview of the DD system and helps to guide individuals and families on accessing resources and services. And finally, we distribute a monthly digest featuring resource highlights, training opportunities, and upcoming events relevant to individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. If you'd like to stay informed, you can sign up for our email list through the link provided in the chat, or check out the My Life, My Community website. And Rachel will continue to add links in the chat throughout so that you can sign up and you can follow us on Facebook too. Thanks for your time, and I will now turn the next portion of the meeting over to Rhonda Gaines.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhonda Gaines, and I'm the IFSP Community Coordination Supervisor. My role with IFSP is to foster collaboration between Virginia self-advocates and their families who make up the IFSP state and regional councils. Tonight, I am very happy to introduce our main speaker. Our topic for tonight is understanding and preparing for independent living. Our main presenter is Marie Fraticelli, DBHDS Western Region Housing Coordinator. I will just go through and read her bio for you. Most of Marie's history working with adults with developmental disabilities started with her working in group homes in 1987 as an untrained, inexperienced direct support staff. Marie's only other exposure to working in this field was as a volunteer for the Special Olympics, and some established friendships with the sheltered workshop cleaning crew in an office building where she worked. Marie eventually became case manager with the local community services board and worked there for 14 years. 3 of those years, she was a liaison between the CSB and Central Virginia Training Center, where she helped people transition from their institutional care to their choice of community-based living. That was also when she completed her bachelor's degree in healthcare administration and her master's degree in human services. Marie transitioned and has now been with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, Office of Community Housing, for the past 6 years. That was when the Virginia State Rental Assistance Subsidy was created, as a way to help people with limited incomes have an opportunity to live in a way you and I live in our communities. So now I will turn this meeting over to Marie.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to be here. I want to start by kind of giving an overview of what we're going to talk about today. I don't see my slide up. Is it up, or is it just me not seeing it for some reason? Yeah, put it in presentation. There we go. Yay. Thank you, Rachel.
Sure.
With this presentation, I hope to share some things that anyone should consider when living independently. The first thing I'm going to discuss is what independent means and how it differs from community living or long-term care settings. I'll talk about rental subsidies in general, who they are for and how do they work. And then we'll discuss rental subsidies the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services provides. Interesting note, I've heard tell that we're like one of the third largest providers of rental subsidies in the state of Virginia. So yeah, we're helping a lot of individuals out there. Finally, we'll discuss what should be known to be what should be known to be successful as a tenant, and we also have some helpful links at the end of the presentation. So, next slide, please. Thank you. With this I've got to change slides too, so I can see what I'm supposed to be saying. Sorry, y'all. Integrated life definition. A longstanding vision for Virginia includes having a system of supports and services where all individuals, regardless of barriers, have opportunities for freedom, equality, and the opportunity to participate fully in public life to the extent that is possible. That people define their own integrated life based on what is important to them. Next slide, please. Meet Josh and Ryan. These are two individuals that were helped with the state rental assistance program. Josh lives independently. He gets a subsidy through DBHDS, and he lives independently. And both these gentlemen gave permission for us to use their images and their story. He lives in Richmond and lives completely alone. He has a aide that comes down, lives in the same apartment house as him, and he comes down twice a day to help him get out of bed, get ready, and go out into the community if he likes, or do whatever he needs. He also helps him in the evenings. Josh has an iguana, and that's his only roommate. His live-in, or it's not a live-in aide, excuse me, his personal care attendant also helps take Josh to doctor's appointments and such as needed. Josh, when he moved into his apartment, used some of our funds to help him get an automatic door so that he could go outside independently. He also has a van that he got through some other resources, Lyft van, that his personal care attendant uses to take him to appointments. But he lives in a very urban area, and from what I understand is a very popular man in his neighborhood, and he has lots of friends and does lots of things in his community, and that's Josh. Ryan has a live-in aide. He needs more support than Josh does. He needs somebody there 24 hours a day for different reasons. He lives in the Northern Virginia area where rents are pretty high, and he has SSI. He lives off of SSI like a lot of the folks we help do, and he is able to live in the Northern Virginia area with the state rental assistance subsidy. So that's Josh, that's Ryan, and just wanted you to see meet, because I didn't know, when I made this PowerPoint, having this great team of people that are going to present to you about their experiences. But these are two additional experiences that we have. And we have housed over 2,000 people independently with state rental assistance thus far. Next slide, please. So living independently does not mean living alone. And that's something that a lot of people think it means when they hear independent. But it means a lot of things. Do you prefer to be alone? Maybe you've had a roommate with, you've had an experience with roommates. Maybe you were married previously. Maybe you lived with your family, your intimate, your immediate family. Maybe you didn't like living with other people. Maybe you want to live alone. Some people, on the other hand, have never lived alone. And then once they do, they realize, not so crazy about that. I like to use myself as an example a lot in this. And, when I tell these stories, I was somebody that had a roommate, didn't care for my roommate, tried to live alone, cared for that less, decided to go back to getting a roommate. So we all have different experiences. Sometimes you have to try different things before you decide what you like. If you want some companionship, a roommate might be an option. We'll talk about that later because there's some things you need to consider with a roommate. Do you need assistance? Do you need a personal care attendant? Do you need assistance from family and friends? Do you need assistance from other technology or people, in the community that can help you with certain things? We're gonna delve into that a little bit. Do you need a lot of assistance? Do you need a live-in aid like Brian in the previous slide? We'll talk about that also and what those requirements are and what that means. What do your days look like? Do you work? Do you volunteer? What do your evenings look like? Do you have a nice quiet night at home? Do you have a job in the evenings? Or do you like to stay out late with friends and family? Do you live in a really, bustling community that never sleeps? And you like to be out and about? These are things you need to think about and how that's going to impact your having, roommates or not. What do your weekends look like? Do you participate in sports, church activities, shopping, housekeeping, other chores? Are you a homebody? Do you like to be out and about, or do you like to stay home? Is it a little bit of both? Do you need to, how do you like to spend your money? Do you need to shop less and budget more? I know I do. Prime Days was not a good thing for me. But anyway, so, we all have to know how we spend our money and be cognizant and think about how do you spend your money and how important is that to your budget. We're going to talk about that a little bit. How do you get around in your community? Do you have to live in a place where you have public transportation? Do you have to live in a place where you can walk everywhere? Do you not need to do that because you have a vehicle? Or do you have, again, friends and family that can help get you around? And what are some absolute deal breakers? Do you need a first floor apartment? Do you need a roll-in shower? Do you need an end unit? Do you need a pet-friendly unit? Do you need a washer and dryer in the unit? These are some things that you need to consider also when you're thinking about living independently. Next slide, please. Independent housing is often preferred because individuals can live in housing types that other people can live in that don't have disabilities. So, and they'd be based on income. Another reason why it's preferred is individuals have social, religious, and educational and personal opportunities to fully participate in community life or not. If you're living, say, in a long-term care facility or, say, a group home, you may live with, 3 other individuals. You may not have the option to do exactly what you want to do, say, on a Saturday. You may have 3 people that want to go to the movies, and you may have one person that goes to synagogue on Saturday, and you have 2 staff. And that could be a problem because if you're not allowed to go anywhere without your staff, then probably the people that want to go to the movies are going to win out. And maybe the person that wants to go to synagogue will have to wait till next week to see if they get to be able to go. So that's one of the reasons why people prefer independent housing. They get to actually do what it is they want to do when they want to do it. We make sure that housing is affordable. I know a lot of people are like, wow, the rents are so high. How can you afford to live independently? But affordable housing means that an individual pays no more than 30% of their adjusted gross income on rent. Long-term care facilities, and some people don't realize this, a group home, sponsored residential home, nursing home, these are places that are considered long-term care facilities, and they usually require a good portion of your Social Security benefit as room and board, with leaving you a small amount to have for your own personal use. That's not acceptable to a lot of people. A lot of folks assume that, you know, if they have a Medicaid waiver, that that's paying for everything. No, Medicaid pays for the services. Social Security benefits typically pay for the room and board. And if you have personal funds, that will pay for the room and board. But you usually pay a percentage of a far higher percentage than 30% of your income to room and board. Another reason why people prefer independent housing is because the housing is accessible and barrier-free. It's actually easier to find a barrier-free apartment, believe it or not, sometimes than a barrier-free sponsored home or group home. Nursing homes, I'm not going to include in that because they're all barrier-free. So there's, you know, that's a something to consider. Housing is leased or owned by the individual. And finally, housing is not contingent upon participation in services. So if you are living in a nursing home, group home, sponsored residential home, you need to participate in the services. If you don't participate in the services, then you are simply a tenant and you are not bringing in the money that those providers are counting on. So you need to participate in the services that they require you participate in. And it would be something that your ISP includes. But if for some reason you don't want to participate in the services, or say you don't like the provider or the staff or whatever, you can't live there anymore. You have to move. As a case manager, I dealt with that on several occasions where I would get the phone call that this person has 30 days to find a new place to live because they're not participating in services. So this is something that happens more frequently than, you know, I'd like to acknowledge, but it does, it happens, and it's just a reality. Whereas when somebody's living independently, they get to stay where they want to stay, and they get to invite in who they want to invite into their homes, insofar as service providers. And if they decide they don't want services, they don't have to take them, and they still have their house. So we serve a lot of people that don't have services. Maybe they have jobs, maybe they don't, but they don't have to take services, and they can switch providers at a whim and not have to worry about losing their housing. Can you go to the next slide, please? What to know before you start the rental process. So you should know that rent should only be 30% of your income. This is just the standard practice financial thing. People know this. Your mortgage shouldn't be 30% more than your income. I mean, 30 shouldn't be more than 30% of your income. Your apartment shouldn't be more than 30% of your income. That is just a standard financial budgeting thing. Okay. So there's that. The next thing you need to know is what a housing subsidy is. A housing subsidy is financial assistance to pay for the balance of the rent above and beyond 30% of your income. So this is going to be math And I hate to break the news to y'all because one of the reasons why I don't work for NASA is because I'm not so good at math. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to do math on the next slide. I'm just warning you now. So if you're going to pass out or something and you can't handle it, I'm giving you your warning. But it's easy math and we should be able to kind of follow along, I hope. Most housing subsidies will not cover more than the fair market rent in the area for your apartment. So another thing you need to know before starting the rental process is you are not going to get the fanciest apartment in your neighborhood. It ain't happening. I don't know, maybe it is. Depends on your neighborhood, I guess. But you can't get a penthouse on the tallest skyscraper, say in Richmond. That's not going to happen because we can't afford to pay for everybody to have the same thing. But we do have fair market rent, and there is a place to find fair market rent. And we're going to go into that a little bit more. But it's important to know that the government has created a table of how much you should be paying in your neighborhood for rent and how much the subsidy will cover for rent. So first we're looking at your income, 30% of your income, and then we're looking at the apartments you want. And that would be the balance after your income is paid, and that would be what the government decides is fair for your area. And you can get a nice apartment. That's something else you need to know. It's not like, lousy apartments. You can get a really nice apartment for fair market rent. Landlords are not allowed to discriminate based on the number of reasons. There's lots of reasons why they can't discriminate, but one reason that I hear over and over again is, well, they don't take subsidies. They don't take SREP. They don't take Section 8. They don't take Housing Choice Voucher. Well, if their rent is below fair market, they have to take the subsidy. They cannot discriminate. As of July 2020, landlords are not allowed to discriminate based on the source of income for your rent. Now, if they're charging more than fair market rent, then you can't get that apartment anyway because the subsidy won't pay for it. But if it's below fair market rent, they have to take your subsidy. There is no more of that. We don't take Section 8. We don't take Housing Choice Voucher. They have to. It's the law. The next thing you should know is an apartment that is paid for by a subsidy needs to pass a housing quality inspection prior to the lease being signed. So if you are in the process of getting a subsidy, please, please, please don't sign a lease until the agency that is giving you that subsidy has done their housing quality inspection. If you do that, you will be responsible for the entire amount of the lease. So you don't want to do that. They cannot issue the money for an apartment until they have done their inspection and until the landlord has made sure that the unit is to quality that is expected by Housing and Urban Development. And finally, a lease is a contract. It's a contract for typically a year. Sometimes people don't take that idea seriously. And again, I'm going to use myself as an example. You don't always realize that you're going to be financially responsible. You can't just leave. Your roommate can't just get up and leave. I mean, if they do, what's going to happen again is you are going to be brought to court to pay the remainder of the rent for the remainder of the year. And you're going to have to pay the full amount of rent, not just the adjusted rent. You're going to have to pay the full amount of rent because subsidies are not paying for an empty apartment. So if you abandon your apartment because you just didn't like living there anymore before the lease is up, you're breaking a contract and you're financially responsible for that. And I don't want to scare people. I just want people to be aware of these things before starting the process because these are really, really super important things that we've seen people not understand and get hung up on. And we've got lots of people at DBHDS to help you with these details. You don't have to remember all of these. You just have to kind of have it somewhere lurking in the back of your mind that Marie said there was something I should or shouldn't be doing, and let me check it out and see what it was she said. And these are some of the things you need to know. Okay, so here's the math. Sorry. You can, if you want to doze off, you can at this point. That's fine. So let's just say, for example, mythical person is making $990 a month. Okay. If you were a mythical person and you wanted to live in Charlottesville, you can't rent an apartment for $990 a month. But if you divide that by 3, you can maybe rent an apartment for $330 a month if you had a subsidy. Now, when I'm talking about a subsidy, again, I'm not talking about just what we offer at DBHDS. I'm also talking about subsidies that you can get from other places, and I'll go into that a little bit later. Section 8, housing choice voucher. This is the typical calculation that's done, okay? So you can walk in there with a $1,200 a month income. You can walk in there with a 0 amount income. Whatever your income is, they divide it by 3, and whatever that number is when they're done dividing by 3 is what you pay every month to your landlord, what you pay, the check you write, okay? Then the mythical person is left with $660 a month for food, phone, utilities, and other expenses, okay? That's it. That's it. So they pay $330 for their rent. They get $660 a month to pay for other things that they need or want. And then the rest of the rent is covered by the subsidy. Let's just say, for example, that the rent is $1,200 a month. And then you subtract the $330 that you're writing per month. That leaves the state with an $870 a month bill to pay for your apartment, okay? State, or in some cases, the federal government. It depends on where the subsidy is coming from. So that's just your general subsidy math, okay? That works for Section 8, works for housing choice voucher, it works for project-based vouchers, it works for state rental assistance, and any other kind of voucher, any other kind of subsidy program, housing subsidy program you know of. That's usually how it works. You pay for some of it, and the subsidy provider pays for the rest of it. And they all generally use the fair market rent documentation system, select geography, HUD user. And I'm going to go to this link right now just so you can see it. I don't know if I can. Maybe you should do it, actually. Rachel, can you click on that link for everybody to see? Because I can't, unless you put it in the chat.
I can put it in the chat.
1 second, Marie. Let me change something up here.
Okay.
Oh,
There you go. Cool. So this is what this link looks like. If you could go to Virginia, please. And let's pick, I don't know, let's pick Bath County just for fun, just to see what the fair market rents are in Bath County. I have no idea. Go to the next
Do you want me to
screen.
hit next screen?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. So here are the rents for 2024 for Bath County. An efficiency is $731 a month, and a 1-bedroom is $735 a month. Now, if you're one person, you're only going to get allowed a 1-bedroom. Okay, there are exceptions to that, and I can go into that later. But you are going to only be allowed to have a 1-bedroom. That'd be the biggest one you can have, unless you can come up with a reasonable accommodation for why you would need 2. You need to know that, again, 900. So say you're making $990 a month. That's going to eat all of your money, just even in Bath County, and that's a very inexpensive rent. Now, if we could go back, Rachel, and go to, let's go to Charlottesville, for example. Jumped up quite a bit, didn't it? Quite a bit. So you can see $990 a month is never going to pay for a 1-bedroom in Charlottesville. That's why you need a subsidy. Okay. That's why you would need a subsidy. So if you're making, if you're in a low income bracket and you can't afford your rent, then you need to sign up for some kind of subsidy program somewhere. If it's not with DBHDS, you're going to need it from somewhere else. And that's kind of what I want to get across to folks, because you will pay some on your, some of that will come out of your monthly check, but the rest of it will come out of some other pool of money, and it will pay for the balance of that. Okay. But you can't get an apartment in Charlottesville for $2,000 a month. We can't pay for that. So just kind of want to, again, get that in people's heads so they understand what that whole situation is like. So that's the fair market rent system, and you guys will have access to that link, and you can just kind of play around with it and see what rents look like in different places. Okay, you could get back to the slide. I want to be clear that the calculations that are done by the agency that is administering the subsidy. So, just because DBHDS might have a subsidy, it doesn't mean that we're doing all the calculating. We actually farm that work out to other agencies. Sometimes they're CSBs, sometimes they're housing authorities, and they take a lot of stuff into account. So, for example, they want to know, is there going to be a roommate? If there's going to be a roommate, then both of their incomes are combined, and they're out-of-pocket if there are out-of-pocket medical expenses, then that's considered, and those are deducted from income. Does mom and dad give the person money, say they pay $200 a month to help for the dog's expenses? That might be included as income. So this is what I did, this math here is an example of a rough calculation. Okay. It could be just different numbers and different calculations. But we need to consider that it's needed. You've seen what the rents cost. You understand why a subsidy is needed for some people. I'm not going to lie. I've had people come to me that make plenty of money and are able to pay their own rent, and they don't need a subsidy. But that's not the case for a lot of folks that we work with. So that's why it's important. If we could go to the next slide, please.
Is it showing up for you all? It's the housing subsidy.
Yeah, if I need a housing subsidy, how do I go about getting one? So this is, again, general information for anybody that needs a housing subsidy. If for some reason me or my brother or my next door neighbor for some reason couldn't pay their rent and needed a housing subsidy, the first thing I'm doing is I am going to the local housing choice voucher administrator in my area and signing up to be on their wait list. Okay, I'm going to go and get on their wait list so that I can be on the wait list for a housing choice voucher and hopefully rise up the list at a pretty good pace to get that housing choice voucher. That's for everybody, regardless of criteria. It's all about, what kind of money you have or don't have, I should say. And if anybody I know that was renting an apartment suddenly found themselves unemployed or needed a voucher, the first thing I'm saying to them is go to your local housing authority and get on their wait list. Okay. Each housing authority has their own little criteria. Maybe you have to live in the area for a certain amount of time. Maybe you don't. They all have their own little rules, but get on as many wait lists as you possibly can. That's another thing, within areas that you don't mind living. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the low income apartments and affordable housing for rent in Virginia. That's a really great site. It will tell you about what kind of what kind of wait lists are open and what wait lists are closed, because sometimes the wait lists are very, very long and they close them. We've had a lot more movement on the wait lists opening up in the 6 years I've been with DBHDS. Actually, 8 years I've been with DBHDS. Whew. This is like the first time I've seen wait lists opening up. So it's worth going there and seeing where you can potentially sign up for a housing choice voucher. Now, the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, however, offers 2 types of housing subsidies: permanent supportive housing and state rental assistance. So let's go ahead and look at the criteria on the next slide, please. Now, this is probably what most of you are here for, to hear about what it is we have at DBHDS. And I apologize that it took me a while to get here, but the reason why is because, like I said, I think it's always important to know some of the general broad information. All that stuff I told you applies to our programs as well as the other programs that are out there for the general public. Ours have some specific criteria, though, that you have to meet. So the criteria for permanent supportive housing is that you have to be an adult with a serious mental illness as defined by DBHDS, who currently is either a patient in a state psychiatric facility and is interested in permanent supportive housing, or a resident of a supervised residential setting like a assisted living facility or a group home who can live more independently, or chronically homeless or literally homeless and at risk for becoming chronically homeless, or finally unstably housed and a frequent user of the hospital or criminal justice system. Okay, that's permanent supportive housing. Now, the criteria for the state rental assistance program, which is the program that I've helped administer for the last 8 years, is for people with developmental disabilities who are 18 years or older, agree to not live with a parent, grandparent, or guardian, and are in one of these categories. Okay, they are either an individual that meets the VIDES for Medicaid developmental disability waiver and currently live in an intermediate care facility, training center, or hospital, or are receiving Medicaid DD waiver services and have group home services, in-home supports, personal assistance, etc., or are currently on the wait list for Medicaid DD waiver services. So this is like, this and IFSP are 2 of the big things that DBHDS is able to provide for people that are on the waiver wait list. And this is one of the biggies. This can be a big one. And I'm going to also go into some of the benefits of getting independent housing a little bit further on. If you could go to the next slide, please. So to start the process for either permanent supportive housing or state rental assistance, which we lovingly call SRAP, you contact your local community service board or behavioral health authority, and I provided the link for that. If you don't know what your CSB or local CSB or behavioral health authority is, and you can start the process there. In the case of someone that is specifically applying for state rental assistance program housing subsidy, ask for access to case management, as it is required when accessing housing assistance. You might get some pushback if you go to the CSB and say, you know, I'm on the waiver wait list, I'd like to live independently, but I don't have a case manager right now because I'm just on the wait list. And they might say, well, we don't provide case management for people that are on the wait list. And you say, well, if I ask for housing, you're supposed to. And that should be your ticket in there. Now, if for some reason you're still told that you can't get service, case management services, please let us know, and we'll help advocate for you, because that is one of our criteria, is that you have active case management for the process of applying for and getting housing, and it is required of the CSBs to provide case management for somebody that is looking for housing through state rental assistance. You can't you can't get state rental assistance without a case manager. We have to have that referral done by a case manager, and the follow-up has to be done by a case manager. So again, like I said, you should be able to go to your local CSB and say, this is what I want, and this is what I need, and please help me go, carry this process out. If you could go to the next slide, please. I'd like to talk, a little bit about roommates and live-in aides. This is kind of really important information. People frequently say, I'll get a roommate. That's good. That's good. One thing to consider, first of all, is that your rent is combined with the roommate's rent, and that's what is going to be taken into consideration. So if your roommate makes a lot of money, it could put you over the amount that you need for a subsidy. So that's something you should know right off the bat. If you have a roommate who is not going to jeopardize your ability to get a subsidy, that's great too. But you need to also consider, again, that your rent every month is going to be higher than if you just go it alone, okay? And that they're supposed to be contributing. So roommates, they're on the lease and they have tenancy rights. The roommate's income is included in the support of the household expenses, including rent and utilities. Roommates are entitled to live in their apartment within the rules of the property, and roommates are not responsible for the happiness or health of each other. So you are not responsible for your roommate's happiness and health, and they are not responsible for your happiness or health. And that's important to keep in mind. Now, live-in aides, totally different situation. A live-in aide does not have tenancy rights. A live-in aide is an employee. A live-in aide is not required to provide any income towards rent, utilities, etc. A live-in aide can be terminated at the discretion of the person they serve. Live-in aides are not tenants. They are authorized occupants. And that means the landlord is going to do a background check on the live-in aide, but they're not going to do a credit check or anything else, just a background check to make sure they're not dangerous. And the live-in aides are responsible for the health and safety of the person they serve. Okay, so the example I like to use is if you have a roommate and your roommate likes to come in from work at 3 o'clock in the morning and start slamming doors and the microwave and the refrigerator and stomping around the apartment, there isn't a whole lot you can do about that. You've got a whole year to enjoy that pleasure. If your roommate likes to have parties every weekend, there isn't anything you can do about that. You're stuck with that roommate every weekend having parties because they're allowed to live in their apartment the way they want to. If you have a live-in aide and they start having parties every weekend, you can fire them, and they have no tenancy rights. So they have no right to argue about that. You can fire them and they have to leave. Okay. So that's a big difference. But the other thing is that you have to be able to justify having a live-in aide. A lot of live-in aides do live in exchange for room and board. They live in the apartment. And sometimes they can even have jobs. If you have a job and your live-in aide has a job while you're at work and they're at work, that's something that can happen. It's not a bad deal for some people, but they do have to be really good at what they do while they're there, or they can lose their job and their housing. Okay. So there's a lot of little things to learn about live-in aides and roommates and the differences, but these are some of the main things. And a live-in aide is there just at the discretion of the person they serve. They are not there for any other reason. Okay, they are there to provide your health and safety. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, word about money. We've already discussed the cost of rent. Let's consider essential needs and programs that can provide some help. I've got some links to these programs. SNAP benefits for food. FCC has resources for phone, internet, and other low-cost options. Cooling and heating assistance through Department of Social Services. Check your credit score before you start the process of going out and getting rental housing, because you don't want any surprises. The landlord's going to come back and say, hey, you've got no credit, or you've got bad credit. You don't want surprises, but we can help you at DBHDS talk through it, and also talk about some ways to kind of repair things if you need to repair something. If you found out you've been exploited by somebody else and that they've stolen your identity, that we've had that happen before, you definitely want to make sure that your credit is sound. And if it's non-existent, you have to make sure that you prepare a reasonable accommodation, which you can ask for from a landlord, so that they will consider your application. The other thing I'm going to talk about are money holes, or money suckers, I like to call them. Lots of people are getting taken advantage of recently by car dealers and getting really expensive car payments. Car payments are not the only problem. It's also, you've got to consider insurance. You've got to consider fuel and the upkeep of the car. So cars can be a really big expense. If you can live in a place where they have public transportation and you could do public transportation, or if you can live in a place where you can walk, or if you have a reliable form of transportation besides getting your own car, I recommend it highly. However, if you do have a car, make sure you are really good at budgeting, because it's expensive. Just across the board, it's expensive. Expensive cell phones. I have had to turn away some budgets because of expensive cell phones. And it's not that I've said you can't have a rental assistance certificate, but you can't have a rental assistance certificate and this really expensive cell phone, because you're making huge payments every month. Please consider the cost of the phones you're buying before you buy them, because you can end up putting yourself in a jam financially. Pets cost a lot of money. Alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, and needy friends. Friends who like to borrow money all the time. They are major money suckers. So you want to make sure you're aware of them. Beware of causes for eviction. Not calling maintenance to fix broken items, not cleaning your apartment, unauthorized guests. Those needy friends that need your money are usually also the people that are trying to sleep on your couch. All apartments have different rules about how long a person can sleep on your couch. Sometimes they'll say 2 weeks is fine. Sometimes they'll say 3 days is fine. If you don't know the rules, and if you don't follow the rules, you can end up getting evicted. Also consider criminal activity, creating an ongoing disturbance. If you do these things, you can end up getting evicted. If your guests do these things, you can end up getting evicted. So, be real aware. I'm not saying you can't have some rowdy, crazy friends. That's fine. I've got some rowdy, crazy friends. We're all allowed to have the kinds of friends we want to have. I'm just saying, make sure that you hold on to your apartment regardless of your friends, and you don't let them impede your ability to keep that apartment. Also, evictions go against your credit record. So it's going to cause you problems getting an apartment in the future if you have an eviction on your record. Can we go to the next slide? We all need help. Be creative. Not all help costs money. Banks help us with money and paying bills. I don't know where I'd be without electronic bill pay. Stores have shopping apps to buy your food, pick it up, have it delivered. Might be worth a subscription to, one of these if you're within a delivery range. I live out in the sticks. I can't get food delivered to me, but I will go pick it up and I don't pay for it. So it's, it's really worth it to me to not have to go into the store to save money. I mean, save time. But if you can do it on your, your tablet or your computer or your cell phone beforehand, that could be really helpful. And sometimes they could deliver it right to your house. Automatic vacuums can help keep your house clean. Any kind of unlikable tasks that can be taken care of. Some tech, some high tech. If you have a dishwasher, yay. If you have a automatic vacuum cleaner, yay. Getting some staying healthy and getting some community integration, working, going through Parks and Rec for different classes, YMCA. There are some gyms that are really inexpensive. Places of worship can give you some volunteer opportunities. Church families can be every bit as vital as your real family sometimes. I speak from experience. When I was sick, I had more casseroles than I have ever seen in my whole life, and they help feed me for a long time. So church families are awesome. Hobbies keep your hands and mind busy. Jobs give you more money to pay bills. Doctors and nurses help us when we don't feel well. Consider telemedicine also. If you have trouble getting out into the community and you have an option of telemedicine, that is an awesome thing we've got now. And I really have made use of that, because when you feel sick, do you really feel like going out and waiting in a waiting room? Not necessarily. So telemedicine
you have about 15 minutes. You have about 15 minutes.
And I have 2 more slides left.
Okay.
Different organizations provide resources that can help people with information. Like, for example, IFSP can provide you with all kinds of information and resources to help you with different things. There's also your local Department of Social Services. Again, local churches can help with lots of different things. We have food banks, all kinds of things, clothing banks. So consider all these things that you can get help and services with. If you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, service and support. So let's talk about some paid services and natural services. Paid services, therapists, doctors, Medicaid support staff. Natural supports, family, friends, neighbors, community members. Live-in aids, we already talked about that. Roommates, there is a program that we have through the Medicaid waiver where you can do shared living. You can have a roommate as a companion if it's somebody that you like and you want to get into a lease with them, and they're not going to slam the microwave at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to get along just fine for a year. Consider shared living if you have a Medicaid waiver. You can actually use shared living to help defray some of their costs towards the roommate relationship. And speaking of having a Medicaid waiver, I'd like to talk a little bit about the building independence waiver. Unfortunately, not all case managers know a whole lot about this waiver or talk a lot about it. But the building independence waiver is a waiver that you can get if you have a signed lease. So no waiting list, no, urgent need powwow or anything like that. What do they call the
waiver slot assignment committee?
Yes, thank you. The
WSIC.
waiver slot yes. No slot assignment committee. This is as simple as getting your case manager to apply for you to get the BI waiver. And the building independence waiver gets you 21 hours a week of residential support. It gets you a lifetime of supported employment, day support, community, community access, and also, it's it's something that you would not have had if you didn't sign a lease. You could just, you could wait for your number to come up a different way through the FIS or the community living. But if you have the the ability to live independently, you want to live independently, and you want to move forward with that process, once you have a signed lease, you can apply for a building independence waiver. So the best kept secret in Virginia, as far as I'm concerned. And finally, my last slide, if you could go to the last slide, is all the links. The only one I want to show on here is the More Tools link. And that one I think is pretty helpful. I think all of these are helpful, don't misunderstand, but that's the one I wanted to show you. On there, we have, and that's through DBHDS. Can you click on that, Rachel? Or do you want me to do it? Oh, Heather put it in there. I could do it. Let me do it.
I got it. I can,
Oh.
hang on 1 second. Let me just
Okay.
make sure it's popping up.
Yeah, if I click on it, you're not going to see it. So yeah, just go ahead and do it.
All righty.
There we go. So we have lots of information on here. If you go all the way to the bottom, yeah, you can see like we've got information on roommate searches, guardianship information, live-in aids. We've got live-in aid lease addendums, sample live-in aid caregiver agreements. You're going to want an agreement with your live-in aid, like a contract. The roommate stuff I absolutely love. There's a chore chart on there. You can have, you can kind of coordinate with your roommate as to who's in charge of different things. I think there's a lot of helpful tools on there. There's also questions to ask potential roommates. This is important, again, to kind of weed out, somebody that you're not going to want to live with, and somebody that you are going to want to live with. Yeah, it asks about, do they participate in drug use and stuff like that. Stuff you just, like, I wouldn't even think to ask somebody, but you should, because you don't want to find that out after you've signed the lease, right?
Right.
So, and that's it. That's all I've got, y'all. So carry on. Thank you very much. And I'd be happy to answer all the questions, but I think our panel is going next, correct?
Yes.
How exciting. I can't wait to hear you guys
Yeah.
tell me how great it is living independently. Yay.
Thank you so much, Marie. Great information, lots of details. I think it's a good way to get started, at least starting to have a conversation.
Thank you.
So yes, our next session is we get to hear from our wonderful panelists who are all three are part of our IFSP Council. And I will, I'm going to introduce each and give you a little background and bio about them. They all three have really unique stories in terms of their journey to living more independently and how they came to those, came to that decision and what they've learned in the process. So all three of our panelists, so Thea Blech-Caulder is our IFSP Regional Council member in Western Region, and William O'Connell, is on our State Council for the Eastern Region, and Shawn Kirk is our State Council member for the Central Region. So I'm going to start with Thea. I'm going to read her bio and then we'll go into our questions. And just listen in carefully because they have some really good stuff to share. So Thea is a young woman living in her own townhome and has volunteered on the IFSP Regional Council. Is this correct, Thea, for 2 years? Can Thea hear me? Thea is diagnosed with cerebral palsy, but does not let the disability define her or her potential. She participates in Zumba classes and expresses herself through various forms of arts and crafts. Thea loves helping others stay informed and is a strong advocate for herself, who is not afraid to offer her opinion. Thea shares her home with her cat, and they get along quite well. Thea currently works at TJ Maxx and has a beautiful family who supports her. Thea often consults with her mother when making major decisions. Thea's mom also supports with keeping her on track with the completion of routine activities that help manage her home. Thea says that she feels comfortable and safe where she lives and loves the quiet. So do we have Thea available? Okay. Maybe she took a little break. We will come back. We'll circle back to Thea. We'll move to William. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay. William wanted to share a little bit about, who they are. For almost a year, William has served as a volunteer on the IFSP State Council. William identifies as transgender lesbian who is diagnosed with Down syndrome. William lives on her own in an apartment through Hope House. William receives periodic supports from the Hope House staff who help increase independent living skills with cooking, cleaning, budgeting, and prioritizing errands. William says her favorite meal to prepare is multigrain lentils with sausage. William stated in high school, she attended the independent living classes and decided 3 to 4 years after graduation that she wanted to live away from her family, just like her siblings. It was time to venture out. William currently works at One Life Fitness Place, but would love a job related to advocacy to directly help others. William has demonstrated advanced skills in Taekwondo and participates in soccer, basketball, tennis, and powerlifting through Special Olympics. William's family supports her when needed, and she has a special friend who is here tonight to offer support by the name of Donna Roble. You here, Donna?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. I think some of the connections are being lost. So, William, we're going to start with your first question.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
So the question is, what made you decide you wanted to live independently with no roommate?
I'm just getting tired of living with my parents all the time.
Mm-hmm. So that was your decision that you were ready to venture out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And have my own place.
Having your own place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what has been the hardest thing about moving into your own place? What's been the hardest thing?
Living with my parents.
Leaving your parents. Okay. Anything else you want to add to that?
I guess the hardest thing to live independently is now my job, One Life, is outsourcing its housekeeping department, and it's gonna go their housekeeping staff, including me.
Mm-hmm. Now you were telling me something that had to do with money. Has that been difficult?
Yeah, managing my financials. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's been the hardest part about managing your financials?
Bills, rent.
Yeah.
Prioritizing them.
Awesome. Now, are you, do you keep up with everything in terms of, you know, keeping your place organized?
I do.
Okay. All on your own?
Yes, all on my own.
Okay, awesome.
And some help.
And
Right.
some help. Okay.
William, tell everyone how you are supported in while you're living independently in your own apartment. You do have support when needed, right?
Yes.
So
So
who
can you tell
supports
us-
you? Yeah.
Mhm.
Hope House.
And did you, before you moved into your apartment, did you receive help from them before you lived in your apartment?
No.
Okay. How did you hear about Hope House?
I think your mom helped you.
Mom?
Your mom did
Yeah.
a little bit of the behind the scenes work to
Yep.
bring all of that together. And that
Mhm.
was his mom was a big driving force behind it all. But William's very good about speaking up for himself and letting everyone know exactly how he wants to live and where and what the needs are.
Okay. Well, thank you, William. I'm going to come back to you and we're going to ask you a few more questions.
Okay.
So you can take a little break. Is Thea available?
She put in the chat that she's online, so might just take a second.
Okay. Well, I will move to Shawn. Shawn, are you ready?
Thea said that she's having technical difficulties.
Okay.
And we didn't see her. What should she do? So, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to move to Shawn and we'll just wait for her to come in.
Okay.
Shawn, are you available?
I'm right here.
Okay, I'm going to read your bio, all the good stuff that you provided. So Shawn is a member of the IFSP State Council and has volunteered for 3 years. Shawn loves all types of music and indulges in his favorite hobby, which is DJing. Shawn is working on a business plan to start a mobile disc jockey venture in order to do the work that he really enjoys, and that is playing music. Shawn is employed by the Arc of Virginia as a logistics lead and pretty much takes care of all the behind the scenes production for marketing, concept and design, social media promotions, newsletter development, and technical supports during virtual meetings. And he provided all of those details. So Shawn's motto: people with disabilities have many talents and abilities. Give us a chance and we'll show you all that we can do. Shawn's family has been instrumental in helping him make decisions that increased his independence. Shawn's initial experience living away from home was in an adult home with 4 other people, but the environment was very structured. This option was made available by the use of an auxiliary grant through the Department of Social Services. For Shawn, the adult home was too restrictive in terms of the rules and lack of flexibility to fully exercise his independence. Upon reflection, Shawn appreciates the time at the adult home as it motivated and allowed him to focus on employment goals to open better housing options. Shawn later secured a roommate and they moved into a condominium together. But after some time sharing the space, it was not optimal as they were too different in their lifestyles and routines. Shawn was encouraged by his mother to look into available condominiums in his building that were for sale. With the support and guidance from his family, Shawn became a homeowner. So Shawn, we are going to start out with, what made you decide that you wanted to live more independently?
What it boiled down to was when I was living in the adult home with I don't know how many other people with severe mental illness, I got to the point where I said, I don't want this. I don't want someone telling me when breakfast is, when lunch is, when dinner is. You know, being told, oh, I can't go to a movie that starts at 9:30 and gets out after midnight because they lock the doors. And I was like, I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, and not have somebody telling me, oh, you can't do that.
Okay.
So that really pushed me to want to live in the community on my own.
Great. So when you were looking to leave the adult home, what was it like trying to find an apartment or housing? Like, did anyone help you with that?
At the time, the way this happened was kind of by surprise, and I'll tell everyone this short story. The night before I found out about the opportunity to get out, I was in the adult home and I was physically knocked clear across my face. I fell backwards onto a solid travertine tile floor, about not too far away from a wrought iron table leg. And I really feel like that I had to go through that. So, and the next day I got an email that told me about an opportunity to be able to potentially move out. And I said, okay, you know, let's consider it. And my mother and I met with the potential roommate and his family, and the rest is history.
Okay. Now, was it your vision to be able to live in a home with less restrictions? Like, is that what you thought about?
Yes. Because when you live in an adult home or group home, you have other people telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And I wanted to be able to have my own space and not have to worry about, oh, is someone going to steal something from me when I'm not looking? Because I did have that happen once or twice.
You've had quite a journey because you were at a place that was quite restrictive, and then your next step was to then live with one housemate or roommate.
Correct.
So how did that work for you?
Initially, the roommate situation was great. You know, his family said, you know, around the holidays, you know, I'd be invited over for their Christmas party and, you know, all these different things. But over time, things kind of went south, and the roommate started doing things that I guess to try to get under my skin. And what was found out was that my roommate was that the family thought that he wanted the typical roommate, you know, one that has friends over and everything else. But they found out 2 years into it that no, all he wanted was he was just tired of living in his condo by himself and wanted to come home at night to somebody else there that basically was like him, that didn't really talk to anybody, didn't really have any friends.
Okay.
And
so that wasn't, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And when that kind of happened, my mother basically asked me, are there Indians for sale in your building by owner? And I remember looking at her like, I hear what you're saying, but because I never would have expected her, considering my past, to ever consider me living completely independent.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you, Shawn. That was incredibly insightful. Just, you know, that journey that you've taken, you know, you're in a situation, you were thoughtful with planning financially. You got the roommate that did not work for you. So you found out that did not work for you. And then now you're a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome. So we're going to come back and engage a little bit more, I'm going to go to Thea. If you could just hold for just a moment. Thank you. So is Thea available?
Thea's online. Just see, can you unmute Thea? We're ready. Just give a second because she's saying she's online, so I can see her there.
No.
Not yet. What we could do is move on and then come back. Thea, when you're able to unmute, you can do that, and we will stop whatever we're doing and make sure you have a chance to talk.
Okay. So William, are you ready for the next question? Okay.
I am.
Good. Okay, so what was the best thing about moving into your own place?
It's funny having my own place.
You like having,
I think that you really want, as we were talking earlier, you were saying,
oh, yes, okay,
you like living in your, because you have your apartment's new, right?
Yes.
It's new. And it's furnished, and you plan your own meals and prepare your own meals, that type of thing. And we talked about your responsibilities as living independently. Can you talk a little about that? In addition, we talked about, in addition to you preparing your own meals, what else do you have to be sure to do every Sunday? Was laundry.
I clean every Friday. I grocery shop every Saturday.
And so those are things that you're responsible for doing, right? You're living independently, and that's up to you. So those are things that you are responsible for.
Yep. And I do my laundry every Sunday at my parents' house.
Okay. And you said that you like living alone, and you like not being so dependent on your parents. It's one of the things that you shared.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that's just awesome about living in your own place that you want to share other than what we talked about? What things bring you joy when you come home every day? What makes you happy?
Just having my own place and a place to go.
It's quiet.
Yep, it's quiet.
Okay. And you can put all your things where you like?
Yeah.
Okay, William, thank you so much. If you just hold on, we'll come back around.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have Thea? She connected yet?
Heather's gonna find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been working on it, and I'm gonna follow up and see what I can do.
Okay. Well, Shawn, are you ready for question 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's talk about budget and budgeting. Was there anything that you had to give up or cut back on to take care of your bills and your responsibilities? Just talk a little bit about what we talked about.
In order for me to be able to live where I do in my own place, I had to look at my monthly expenses, how much I'm eating out, the things I subscribe to, whether it be, subscription service, whether it be, stuff like Netflix or Hulu, or even other things, and figure, what do I really need and what can I cut out so I can afford to live where I do. my Social Security base and all of my bills I take care of myself. My brother is my representative payee, and what he does is when I have my big bill, like say real estate tax bill, which those of you that own your own place, you know how that comes around twice a year.
Mhm.
I tell him, hey, I need X amount of money, and then he sends me the money, but I ultimately pay all the bills myself. I don't have somebody that pays them for me.
And what
Have
are
a
some
special,
of what are some of the things that you have to keep track of, especially being a homeowner?
I have to keep, give me 1 second. I live on the 9th floor of a 63-year-old building, and sometimes it gets warm on the floor. So the things I have to keep track of are, one, how much is my homeowners association fee every month? I live in a condo, or we call it an HOA fee. That covers every single utility except for cable, internet, and phone. I have to keep track of, how much is my cell phone bill, and that's my primary means of communication. How much is my internet every month? How much am I spending in groceries? How much are all my other bills? Medical insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, and even the money I spend to be able to see the doctor I have. So I have lots of things that I have to keep track of every month. And this year I've had an extra thing I've had to keep track of because I am taking a wonderful vacation in September. So I've had to keep track of all the payments towards that. And I've had to really budget to make sure that I can afford to go on that trip.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. You and I talked about you kind of forecasting one of your annual expenses to kind of help keep that under control. Did you want to talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
The utility?
I have quite a few annual expenses, but one of them is paying for my homeowner's insurance, which I pay once a year. And I just have to be mindful of when the bill comes in, so that way I can ask my brother for the money to pay the bill, because I call it an uncommon expense because it happens once a year and it's not a monthly expense.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to be late on those things because they will hit you with a hefty late fee, even if you're 1 day late.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about you were talking about your strategy to keep the electric utility kind of under control?
Even though I live in a 12-story high-rise, and even though I don't pay an electric bill directly, I choose to have as few lights on as possible to do my part to help keep the HOA fee low, because every year in the fall, our building goes through and creates a budget for the next year, which is based on how much have they spent this year. And I know that in the fall, I'm going to have a higher HOA fee next year. But if I can do my part, so at night, I have a lamp on my desk and a light over my sink, and that's it, unless I need to go into the bedroom or into the bathroom for some reason. I'm not like some people that have a gazillion lights on 24/7.
So you're doing your part to kind of help control like the average
Correct
fee for the electric bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. You're already ahead of a lot of people, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do we have Thea?
Not yet.
Okay. So William,
Mhm.
you ready?
Yep.
Okay. This last question is, how has living independently changed your life? Living in your own place, with your own things, with the freedom to do what you like, how has that changed your life?
Well, now I have to be stricter with my money. I can't just spend it every single place I go.
Mm-hmm.
I have to budget it out. Like how much money should I use for grocery shopping? How much money should I use for my bills and my rent? And how much money do I have afterwards?
And do you like, what about having say so, like to make your own decisions? How has that changed your life?
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I could decide how much money I'm gonna spend in a grocery store. How much money do I want to spend on bills? Usually, I have the required price for my bills, but it doesn't matter.
Do you ever have friends over, your family, they come to visit?
Some family, some friends.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was pretty awesome. If you just stay with us, we'll have some more questions toward the end, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Shawn, I'm going to check back in with you, and I have the same question. Is how has living independently changed your life?
For one, because of my past and trying to live on one before and it failing, I never thought that I would ever be able to live on my own. And doing so has really, I wouldn't have met all of the wonderful and amazing people that I've gotten the chance to work with. For those on this call who know who Catherine Olson is, worked for the ARC for like 15 years, we realized recently that I've known her almost as long as she's worked for the ARC of Virginia, which we've known each other since 2010. And I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I was stuck in a group home or an adult home, because at the time my mother was a multi-time cancer survivor, and I was like, oh, that's where I'm going to wind up living for the rest of my life. And I'm fortunate to be in my own place because I get to work with all these wonderful people like Rhonda and everybody else to ensure that the people who come after me don't have to go through all of the red tape. And I'll give you guys a little quote. I was going through Partners in Policy Making back in 1998, 99. No, 2008, 2000, excuse me. I had a roommate, his name was David Brum. His son was 6 years old at the time, had autism. And he said, I learned more about autism in one night than he had learned the entire time his son had been alive. He looked, even though I was living in the adult home, he looked at me as my son has potential. You know, my child with a disability has potential.
Yes, you were a role model, so you were inspirational.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to do. I will tell my story to whoever wants to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty awesome. Your mom was very instrumental in kind of nudging you forward to try different things, and then even consider that you can do it. Like it seemed like what you told me, that she felt like
Mhm.
you could do it, that she saw your potential,
She
even
did.
when maybe you didn't.
She did, and she sadly passed away 2 years ago. And I remember before she passed, her biggest fear was going to be, when I'm gone, am I going to be okay? Because she knew when she left this earth that I was going to have no family. And my brother lives 5 hours away in Wilmington, Delaware. My dad lives 3 hours away near Lynchburg. And she was able to pass away peacefully, knowing that I was going to be okay, because I spent the last year of her life, creating those natural supports through my church, through my neighbors, through my employer, and through everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of you, William and Shawn, you all have done a wonderful job, incredibly brave, even when you're, young and you're leaving home and leaving the nest, it's a very scary process because you never quite know, what you will venture, what your adventure is going to be when you're living on your own. And you guys made a brave first step and are thriving. And I am incredibly appreciative that you are here tonight to share your stories with other people to inspire and motivate.
Rhonda,
And yes.
I've got Thea on the phone, and
Okay.
even she's not able to unmute for some reason, but she's going to join us by phone. And so if you could ask the question, and then Thea, when you're ready to answer, you can answer, and then I'll just see if y'all can hear through my phone. If you can't, then I can repeat what she says. We'll try that.
Okay, let's do that. So, Thea, what made you decide that you wanted to live independently with no roommate?
So, Thea, did you hear that?
I heard a little bit here and there, but
what made you decide that you wanted to live independently with no roommates?
Did she go out?
Can y'all hear her? Could y'all hear that?
No, we could not hear her answer.
Okay.
No.
So she said that she wanted to, and sorry, Thea, if I don't get this exactly right. I thought maybe they could hear you. So she said that she really wanted to live independently because she did not want to have any roommates, and she really wanted to be able to live on her own and do what she wanted to do.
Okay. The other question is, what tips would she give to someone who is thinking about living on their own?
Thea, what tips would you give to someone who is thinking about living on their own?
I would say tips for living on your own is whether, when you go to a place, do you feel safe? Do you feel like you can join activities within the community, especially the communities around your neighborhood? Do you have reliable transportation? Do you find things that are interests, like volunteer work and stuff like that?
1 second. So she said tips for living independently is make sure that where you live that you feel safe. Make sure that you can join activities in the neighborhood and in the community where you live, and then make sure that you figure out that you can, if you can get transportation to where you want to go from where you live.
Okay.
Really good
We
tips.
were able to hear her that round, Heather.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
so we'll let you know if we can't hear her.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things that we talked about, Thea, was learning to not to be overwhelmed with the process, to learn how to make decisions and choices over time. Does she want to talk about that?
Did you hear the question, Thea?
I heard some of it. Like I said, it's very hard to hear. You know.
Right. Say it again, Rhonda, then.
That, once you move into your own place, it can kind of be overwhelming with decisions and choices. And we talked about letting people know they can do that over time. They can learn how to do that gradually.
So she was saying that when you and Rhonda talked, y'all talked about how it can be sometimes overwhelming, but that you don't have to know how to handle that on your own right away, that you can learn to do that over time. Was that anything you wanted to add to that?
So I would say, yes, that is a part of it, but also having the support system that you need to be able to live independently. Like, I have a support system that helps me live independently. It gives me the accommodations I need to live independently.
Did y'all hear that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Thea.
Okay. Question 2. You ready? What has been the most valuable resource on this journey to independent living? What has been her most valuable resource?
So the invaluable resource, I think, like, again, having a good support system, being able to initiate your needs, wants, and if you feel, once again, feel safe within your community that you want to live in.
Okay. And what are your primary supports? Like, who kind of supports you routinely to help you remain successful?
That would be my mother. That would be Region 10. That would be Baya, which is not what it's called anymore. And then and Mary Brown, who is my waivers person. They are my support system. They are the ones that help me feel safe, feel comfortable, and feel valued, and also, help me to be as independent as I possibly can.
Okay, thank you, Thea. And I have one more question, and then we'll continue, is how has living independently changed your life?
So living independently has changed my life is being valued in my community, having a good support system, having a good job that I have loved for the past 3 years, and being able to make friends within my community.
And how do you structure your day? Who makes choices in terms of how you structure your day, in terms of what you do?
That would be me, and that would be that keep a routine, knowing what each day I do and what each day I have coming. Mm-hmm. So, and I also keep a calendar that I put on to know, like, when something is happening, when I have meetings, when I have appointments, when I have to go work, stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Thea. That was awesome. So, panelists, please stay with us. I was making a statement in that I am incredibly appreciative of your time, sharing your stories, inspiring and motivating others who may be in attendance and who may hear this video, at a later time. You guys are just awesome. We will have a few more questions. I'm sure people listening to you have other questions they may want to ask. And Marie will also join in the next section of questions and answers. So thank you again for being part of the panel. Okay. So Heather has been gathering questions from our chat, and I will let you start with a few that we have time for.
Okay. Mary Shriver has had their hand raised for a while. If somebody could unmute her so she can ask her question, or actually I can do that. Allow mic. Mary, if you still have a question, you could unmute yourself and ask away. I put allow mic and now. Okay. Maybe Lynn or Rachel, y'all can work on that while I go on to the next question. My next question is, Marie, back when you were talking about requiring when someone lives in a congregate setting or a group home that they have to participate in services. One of the questions was, what do you mean by that? What type of services? Can you
That's
just
a good question.
Explain that a little bit?
So yeah, when individuals receive Medicaid waiver, one of the things that's required, of course, is that they have an individual service plan. That means that they are receiving the services that they require to live in the community. Okay. So they would be participating in their individual service plan and doing what it is that they need to live in their community. And I know that sounds so vague, so let me try to think of an example. Okay, for example, William talked about budgeting a lot. Okay, and so William might be participating in a budgeting goal. He might be working on budgeting, and he might be doing that maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe several times a week. And that would be something that William would have to participate in, and he would, and the provider of the service gets reimbursed through Medicaid for helping him work on that budgeting goal. Okay. When you're living in a congregate setting, now William lives in his own apartment. If William were to say, you know what, I don't feel like working on this anymore, I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to work on this today, or maybe I don't want to work on it tomorrow, he's able to do that. And the service provider is not able to bill. Unfortunately, the thing is when you're living in a congregate setting, you're living in the home of the service provider. And so if you're not participating in your service plan, then you can't continue to live in that home. So I hope that that's clear. So I've worked with individuals that, they, just like all of us, they run hot and cold. Sometimes you're just not feeling it, and you just don't want to, maybe deal with things for a little while, and maybe you want to just try something different. You have the ability with your service plans to be flexible and to try different things, but sometimes providers, they have to have something to bill for, and if you're not letting them provide service, then they have nothing to bill for. Therefore, you have no reason to live there. I hope that makes sense and doesn't sound as awful as it sounds, but it is kind of what it is.
Okay, thank you, Marie.
Just as a reminder, everyone, William prefers she, her pronouns when speaking.
Sorry,
in reference to, yes. And we have time for one more question. All other questions will be answered post-meeting, but we have time live for about one more question.
Okay. If you don't have income except for minimum SSI, does the 30% apply or would it be less? Throw a math question at you at the very last one. If
I
that makes
know.
any,
Thanks a
does
lot,
that make
Heather.
sense?
Yeah. So I mean, the when you apply for a for subsidy, at least for our subsidies at DBHDS, you could have zero income, and you could have, you could have unlimited income. You're not going to probably get the subsidy if you have a really high income. You have to be low income. So SSI is considered low income. Bottom line, that's considered very low income. And so 30% of that is what would be used to calculate your portion of the rent. 30% of zero is zero. So that would be no portion of rent. If you don't have SSI or you have no income at all, you can still apply for a rental subsidy. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to want to know how you're going to buy food or how you're going to pay for your electric bill, but it is something that you can do. And some people have resources in their communities to pay for those other things. So it depends on where you live. But I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. You can relax now, presenters and panelists. For those of you who are in attendance, please take the post-meeting survey, and the link will be provided in chat and the QR code. And at this time, I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to Lynn Fetter.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Lynn Fetter, and I'm just going to wrap up our meeting tonight. The recording and PowerPoint slides will be shared on the My Life, My Community website and on the IFSP Community Facebook page. And Rachel will share the link to past recordings of meetings. The IFSP Council recruitment application will open on August 1st, 2024 through the month of August to the 31st of 2024. If you or someone or someone you know has an interest at this time, please email ifspcommunity@dbhds.virginia.gov. Our next state council meeting is on Friday, August 23rd, 2024 from 12 p.m. to 2:15 p.m. The topic is to be determined. And then our big event, September 26th, 2024, we are going to have a Regional Council Resource and Networking Expo in Wayers Cave, Virginia. And that will be at Blue Ridge Community College with the Training Technical Assistance Center at VCU from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. That topic will be enhancing independence through assistive technology. And it's about how to break barriers to meet diverse needs. The expo is designed to create an opportunity for information that can lead to greater independence by accessing assistive technology tools, equipment, devices, and augmentative communication options. To receive the latest updates from IFSP, please make sure that you are subscribed to our mail list, and Rachel will provide the link for that. Thank you so much to our presenter, Marie Fraticelli, and our panelists, William O'Connell, Thea Blech-Caulder, and Shawn Kirk. Also, thanks to our captioner, Leora Grossel. Your participation is appreciated, and we hope that you've all obtained useful information. One more plug for the survey. If you could take that survey, we would really appreciate it. Your feedback is really important as we move forward on these meetings. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you for your time and your attention, and we hope you learned something new and got some useful information. Have a good evening.